Hey everyone, welcome to a Facebook Live with Jaeger CPA Review. My name is Megan Lewczyk and I'm a CPA and Master of Accountancy, and I just wanted to hop on live today. We just finished up a webinar on the audit mini cram, so some hot topics that you should know about audit, and I figured I would see if there were just other questions available to answer on Facebook Live here. And so I'll go ahead and wait a couple of seconds to see if anybody joins us here live to ask some questions, but I figured I would recap a few of the questions that we got and we always tend to get about the CPA exam and some of the things that students frequently ask us, CPA candidates frequently asked us about taking the CPA exam, things that are just logistics about the CPA exam. So the first one, number one question, always number one thing that we get asked by CPA candidates is, what order do I take the exam in? I don't have the luxury of taking it all in one sitting, which is a good thing, I promise. So what order should I take it in? Hey, Audit Test CPA, thanks for joining us. So what order do I take it in? Well, typically, we do say it depends. It does depend on your lifestyle, things that are coming up in your life, things that you're strong with, how long it's been since you've taken certain classes in college. So those are the areas that you are going to have to see. It depends, but we do recommend a specific order, and this is it. It's FAR, Audit, Reg, BEC. So financial accounting reporting is one of the harder sections in our opinion, and so this is one of the areas where you're going to need to spend quite a bit of study time and diligent effort learning those concepts. So that is one of the areas that we do recommend that you do first. The next area we do recommend is audit. And audit, one of the reasons we say to do this after financial accounting and reporting is that there are some topics that they will be testing at the highest level. So there's four levels that they test on the CPA exam. There's remembering, understanding, application, analysis, and evaluation. So those are the four areas. They test only an audit on the evaluation level, and occasionally they will test topics that are financial accounting topics, so maybe inventory, but now you have to evaluate it and analyze it at an audit level. So for instance, inventory, the sample exam for the AICPA, that's the CPA exam for audit, it has an inventory question. You do kind of need to know inventory before you go into that part to really understand what they're asking. It will take you a lot less time. So that's why we typically say to do audit second. Third is regulation. Again, some of the areas that it's probably the most standalone of all of them. There occasionally may be some equations that are financial ratios that might pop up on regulation, not as many, and ethics will be on regulation. So it kind of leads from audit quite well. And BEC again is last. It's the most comprehensive, kind of gather it all in and test it all. So we do recommend that you do that one last. We've found that people who do FAR before they do BEC have less trouble on some of the operations management topics. They've already kind of worked through understanding how the accounts work together, and so they're better able to understand overhead costing and some of the things that if you really understand how to close out an account at the end of a period and you understand how things flow through inventory, and those areas are a lot easier when you get to BEC. So that's the order if you're just joining us. Again, that was one of the most common questions that we get is what order do we recommend you take the CPA exam in? And that order again is FAR, Audit, Reg, and BEC. So this will be recorded so you can watch the analysis of why I say that. And so those of you who are listening in, looks like one of you just took BEC, didn't do so hot on BEC. Do you have any specific questions about BEC that you'd want to ask, or things that you're concerned about when you try to restudy? And are there any other folks that have taken the exam recently, have questions, things that they'd like to know while I'm on the live? Well, thanks for the thumbs up. Appreciate that. We'll see if there's anybody else who has some questions. I know that one of the other things that we get asked a lot is how do you prepare for the simulations? And some of my favorite advice to tell candidates is to go to the AICPA website. They have a practice exam. And it's not a full exam, but it does simulate the exam exactly so that you'll know exactly where all the buttons are and what kind of level they're testing at. And you'll get a sense for how to understand where, the stem of the question is, how to open all of the different windows with the supporting documentation. That is the number one thing we recommend to do. No matter what review course you're using, make sure before game day, I call it exam day, go in and practice just using the exam interface on the AICPA.org website. And I can put a link here on the chat just so that you have that. But that's probably the number one thing. The other thing we have talked about quite a bit, Phil has mentioned, I've mentioned over time, if you know the concepts, you've gone through the blueprints, you know all of the representative tasks, feel confident in those representative tasks, then you shouldn't have any problem with the simulations. It's once you understand the concept, they could ask it in 100 different ways, and you would just have to manipulate the information to fit it into a simulation. It becomes less difficult once you understand the concept. And I think that it's misguided to do hundreds and hundreds of multiple choice questions and thousands of things where you're not actually understanding the concepts, and it's going to make the simulation so much harder. So try to go through the blueprints, go download them, love them, read them often. If you're struggling on a topic and you just need some clarity, you're getting overwhelmed, go back to that area of the blueprint, say it's inventory, say it's revenue recognition, and read the representative task. Because it tends to be, say you're looking at a textbook, even if it's an intermediate accounting textbook, what they're actually going to ask you on the CPA exam may be less than what you're trying to absorb. So just focus in on what they're actually going to ask you. Try not to get too overwhelmed. And I think that that will help you when you start digging into the actual blueprint item. So we have a candidate here that is very close to passing, very, very close. So you've failed BEC 4 times in a row, but you've passed FAR audit and regulation. And what we recommend, if you haven't already, my number one question, have you downloaded the AICPA blueprint on BEC, and have you kind of gone through it in detail? The nice thing is that they have updated some of the BEC representative tasks for Q3, and BEC in all of the exams, FAR is probably the most specific with representative tasks, and BEC was the least specific. So if you go into the newest version of the AICPA blueprint, they'll have clarified some of the areas that were a little bit vague. In the first section, in the first area, they were talking about internal controls, and now they tell you exactly what types of controls that they might test you on, as opposed to just controls, which is a very broad topic and can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So they clarified that specific representative task to talk to you about exactly what items might be testable and give you a little bit more guidance. The other area on BEC that has been expanded is econ. They've gone in and clarified those representative tasks a lot more sufficiently than they had in the past. So that's an area that will be most likely tested a little bit more over the next couple months. So we do recommend that you dig into that. Other things, know that they've changed the COSO ERM framework that was eligible for testing in Q2 of 2018. So that cube that they used to use is out of here. It got too complex. They're focusing much more on matching risk to the strategy. So before they were talking about the risks, it was kind of a lofty thing. So COSO ERM in this new iteration that was recently enacted that people can adopt, it's not quite the same as an audit standard where it's effective on this date and no one can use the old standard. COSO is based on what the company would like to enact. They can use the old standard or not, but the new one does focus on matching with your strategy. So if you're a low-cost provider and you have business risks, then you want to make sure that those risks you're managing in an appropriate way based on what strategy you have for your company. So you can't spend as much time on certain things if you're a low-cost provider. It's going to cost too much money. There's not a cost benefit for you based on your strategy. So that's something on BEC that has changed. We have a BEC mini cram that we go into a lot more detail. Brian Tankersley is also presenting on that one, and so he talks through in much greater detail some of the changes that have occurred on BEC. So we do encourage you to download that and watch it. All right, so one of the questions that just came in is the IT and cost accounting is beating you up. And there's so many formulas to keep straight. Let's see, so we'll start with IT. IT is one of those where it's going to be tested at a little bit lower level, so remembering and understanding, less application. And so that's just going to be on knowing the topics. We recommend having a good review course provider that has IT-related topics, and they've updated it. They have to kind of keep updating those as time goes on, know the definitions of blockchain, know the definitions of cryptocurrency, some of those things that you've heard in the news, know those things going on to the CPA exam. Other things to know for IT, I would recommend, I was previously an IT auditor, so I would recommend knowing what are general IT controls and general application and IT application controls, and being able to look at a scenario for those items and say there's a risk of someone accessing a system that they shouldn't be accessing. From a list of controls, what control would address that risk? That may come up in audit, but it also may come up in IT. So that's something that you should kind of know those areas pretty well. It is an item in the blueprint that you should know. Let's see, cost accounting. The formulas for cost accounting, I think you have to very clearly understand the relationships between the different financial accounts, and that should help you not have to memorize the formulas. So if you know your T accounts and you know what debits and credits are working together, which account impacts what, you should be able to work backwards. If you forgot the formula, you don't know what it is, you should be able to work backwards to find the answer, even if you don't know the formula. So if you have manufacturing overhead and you're trying to get through to net income and you need to get your cost of goods sold, if you know the relationships between the accounts and you don't know the formulas, you should be able to kind of work through them. That's something I do think helps candidates if they're just very overwhelmed memorizing. I hope that helps a little bit. We know that variances have been tested heavily, so know those. Try to feel confident in those areas. And again, if you kind of dig down to the concepts, it shouldn't feel as overwhelming. It's very hard to memorize those formulas, but if you kind of understand why things would be stated, if it's a price variance, there's a price involved. When does it go up? When does it go down? When is it favorable? When is it unfavorable? Given the numbers, know those things just automatically, and then you can kind of, if they give you a question that's a variance and two of them are favorable and two of them are unfavorable, and the price changed, if the price went up, probably unfavorable. Price went down, probably favorable. So you can kind of logic your way and pick from two. It's 50-50 shot, and then it'll probably be a little bit better result for you on that exam. But just little techniques like that. Are there any other questions? I'm going to call it quits here on the Facebook Live, but I'm happy to stick around another minute or two if there's other questions about the exam. Thank you if you're just joining us. I do appreciate having the audience here joining us today. So If you have any other questions for me, I can be reached at megan.l@jaegercpareview.com, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about the CPA exam. I took the exam in 2011, and so I have recent experience with the digital exam, the one that's a little bit newer than some of our other instructors. So if you have specific testing questions about how and what to expect on that computer-based exam, just let me know. I'm happy to answer those. So thanks for joining me. This is Megan Lewczyk with the Jaeger CPA Review.